We can't expect to build and cultivate a happy, healthy relationship if we're not spending time together.
Welcome, everyone, to Breaking Bread, the podcast brought to you by Apostolic Christian Counseling and Family Services. I am Matt Kaufman. I've got Kaleb Beyer back in the studio today. Kaleb, welcome.
Thanks. Good to be with you, Matt.
A number of months ago, Kaleb, you unpacked 3 small things for marriages, okay? And those aren't the only 3 things for marriages, so I'm excited to hear a few more here today.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So we're going to tackle 3 more small things. The idea here, the vision, is great marriages aren't won in the big ways.
Yeah.
They're won in the small ways. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Is that good news?
Yeah, I think that it is. There's a lot of hope in how the small moments in our lives can really build up. It's not the getaways, the date nights, all those things are needed.
Sure.
But the reality is, just like in our relationship with Christ, it's in the quiet moments. It's sometimes in the seemingly meaningless things that are opportunities for connection.
Number 1.
All right, number 1. So we have 3 themes as we've done in the past: be purposeful, be present, be positive. So when we think about being purposeful, highly happy couples practice meaningful touches throughout the day, boosting relational and individual health. There's been a lot of research done on the impact that just physically touching someone for a number of seconds can have on our emotional health, releasing positive hormones. One of them is called the cuddle hormone, oxytocin. Okay? And if you think about it from the cradle, what do we do with our kids when they're in distress? We squeeze them.
Right.
We hold them. And so the same is true in our marital relationships. When we're in distress, sometimes the most powerful things we can do is not say anything, but embrace or to touch. So meaningful, safe touch can be a really powerful way. And again, it doesn't require a lot of time or...
What's being communicated there? What's happening in those moments?
As I think about that, I think it's a very powerful message, even as you see in the Gospels. Think about this. How many times there was an outcast, a blind, along the side of the road, or this woman was an adulterous woman, or over and over again, Christ moves into their world and touches them.
I think of the leper.
Yes.
I think of the woman with the issue of blood, right?
Yes.
These outcasts, right, that even the law says are unclean, don't touch, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And Jesus embraced them in an amazing way. So when we embrace our spouse, that's kind of what I'm thinking, right? An embrace would constitute as this, right? Or holding hands.
Absolutely. Any type of physical, non-sexual touch. So it can be hand holding, it can be back rubs, it can be a hug. One of the things I've come to appreciate the most is at the end of a hard day to come home and for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, just to embrace. And I think it's a small thing.
So 20 seconds isn't a lot of time. On the other side is a lot of time. 20 seconds, anything, is intentional. And, your kids are going to be like, kind of like, like, wow.
It's not like this touch and go.
It's not a touch and go.
No.
And there is something to that it's not touch and go, right?
Yeah. I think it takes mindfulness to quiet our minds, to be present in the here and the now. Because I can pat somebody on the back and then go my way. Yeah. But to sit in that moment, which 15 to 20 seconds feels like sometimes eternity, right? Like you're saying, but it's it can be a time of worship, it can be a time of praise, but it is a quietness to be present, to feel her warmth, to feel her embrace. And that's what I think is powerful.
There's something, and as I think about the message or what's being said in those moments, I think one thing that's being said in those moments is security.
Yes.
Does that make sense? In my mind, I find myself retreating there when I need security or when I want to communicate security.
You know what, Matt? It's like the world stops in that moment. And whatever stuff happened from the day or tomorrow or wherever, I think in that moment, it stops. Yeah, and there's security. There's a safety there in the presence of each other that is just we're with and just being. We don't need to do anything.
Yeah. So you mentioned oxytocin. Say a bit more about that.
Yeah.
What is that and what's it do?
It is a hormone that's released in our brain through meaningful and safe touch. And so what they found is it's actually important in the process of building trust in relationships.
So bonding.
Bonding. Mm-hmm. Yes, it's a bonding hormone. And so God has designed our bodies and our systems that is part of the process of building trust, that this person cares about me, knows me, they are interested in my world. And that all happens through the power and the engagement of touch.
Okay. So as you mentioned, even with a child, you bond with that child often through touch.
Yes, it does. And even as kids grow older, I have 4 kids, and the ones that are still under 10, they crave for that touch. So it's not like just as infants, they need that. But the interesting thing too is God has created this, that it's universal. Any race, any culture, touch conveys a message.
Well, let's move to the second thing. Number 2.
Number 2, highly happy couples aren't just spending time together because they are happy. A big part of the reason they're so happy is that they're spending time together.
Okay, so this is a time element.
Yes. And it's a time element that, I don't know if this happens for you, Matt, but sometimes when we plan or we think ahead, we kind of approach it from, you know what, when things are right, I'll do this when, down the road kind of sort of thing. And sometimes in relationships, we can wait until the ideal or the happy or the whatever that is. But I think this principle says, no, we engage that behavior and emotions follow.
Yeah.
Not always.
So there's a causal.
Yes.
There's a causal effect in the way that you stated that, right? That we don't spend time because we enjoy it.
Yes.
We enjoy them because we're spending time.
Right.
There's a great deal of optimism there, okay, when we make that switch of understanding that says that, I can get out in front of this thing with my spouse, and if I invest time, it's very likely that likeness and enjoyment will bloom out of that.
Yes, that's true. There is certainly a caveat to that, Matt. So I think it's true to the point. I think now if we're spending time together and our inner world is negative during the time that we're spending together, we can keep spending time together and actually can go downhill.
Okay,
right?
So we could talk about quality time spent or poorly time spent, really. And that's the differentiation you're making here.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that.
Okay. Yeah. So
what does it look like to have good redeeming time together?
So one of the things is, and I think part of this principle here is that we kind of check a little bit of our expectations at the door, okay? So if we expect every date night or every opportunity we have to spend together to be this wonderful, connecting and laughing time, and if it's not, we tend to not do it, then that's not helpful for spending time together. So the first thing is just expectations. Sometimes we're together at the end of the day, both of us are exhausted, and we're not engaging in great dialogue, but just appreciate and accept being together.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be wonderful, grand.
Could that be just being in the same room together, on the same couch together? Maybe you're reading your different things, but together.
And just being able to pause. But what it's not doing is we're together, and then I'm thinking about, man, if only we were like this couple over here. If only, we could spend some time together tonight. It's not wishing for something that isn't. Yeah. But being able to accept what is in this moment and continue to move towards that. And so that's the first piece. I think the second piece is what we would say is part of what builds relationships, Matt, is shared experiences. So that's the way in our spiritual life, it's the way in our families, it's the way in our couple life. What that means is we can't expect to build and cultivate a happy, healthy relationship if we're not spending time together. So there is this sense that rituals that are special, ways of connecting to the two of you, you do them. You engage them, even when sometimes it takes energy and effort.
Yeah.
Right?
What's a ritual? What do you mean by that?
Yeah. Rituals can be as simple as this is kind of what we do when we leave for the day. So maybe we offer a prayer together. Maybe we embrace, hug, and kiss. Maybe we ask our spouse one thing that they're looking forward to today, one thing that they're really apprehensive about so that we can pray about. So small, simple things can be rituals. Rituals also can be remembering our anniversaries, remembering our vows, so they could be more significant. But what rituals are is a way of connecting me and my spouse that this is what we do together. These are things that bind us, that it's like even special things like, pizza and Coke night on a certain night. You just sit down and there's nothing great about it, but you do this. And even thinking about having pizza reminds you of being with your spouse,
right?
Because you do it over and over and over. And so those create memories and connections that are present even when you're not physically present.
Yeah. And they create a we mentality, don't they?
Yeah.
To say that this is what we do, right? And when I think of that ritual, well, that's between she and me.
Yes.
Because that's what we do.
Yeah.
And it's almost like the greater goal is the we, as opposed to maybe, as you mentioned, the expectation out of the moment.
Yeah, of being with.
But there's something powerful, I think, that you mentioned there about
shared memories, shared meaning.
Shared meaning, shared memories, right? Certainly, I think there's something really powerful there, right? That, I mean, if you look at our individual lives, it really is just stacked on top of each other. Memories, right?
Yes.
Experiences.
Yes.
Right? And that's what makes Matt is the chronological stacking of moments and memories and experiences.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So when you put the time together with our spouse, now all of a sudden these come together, and part of what makes me has made her.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's a
web.
major thing. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of like pulling out the photo album or the family videos and just reminiscing together. Remember when? Oh, we thought we'd never get through this, or wasn't this amazing time? And so
Look
not
how
only
intertwined we are.
Oh, yes. And you celebrate that presently, on and on. So our past, we celebrate in the present. It becomes fuel, if you think about it.
It does.
For driving our connection in the present, which is a really powerful thing.
It is.
Worship.
And not all of those memories are glowing.
No.
Those hard things.
Yeah.
And even disagreements. I mean, they've made me who I am, and it's made her what she is.
Yeah.
And it's shared together between us, making us who we are.
Yes.
And that's that's important.
It's a beautiful thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Third small thing.
Highly happy couples quickly stop a negative train of thought or action by replacing unhappy or angry thoughts or actions with positive ones to combat negativity.
So there's a lot there to tease out. It sounds to me at a glance that this is a real mental exercise. Is that true?
It is.
And this is something done individually in the quietness of my own thoughts towards my spouse.
Right. As I think about my spouse, what sort of thoughts come to mind? Are they positive thoughts? Are they negative thoughts? And when we notice that our inner kind of self-talk about our spouse begins to be filled primarily with negative, right? And not positive, they're just lazy, or that they don't care, or that, those sorts of things.
She's thinking that about me, and that's why she said this, and we're kind of filling in this story that we really don't know.
Right.
And your point is that a positive or a negative story?
Yes. And what happens is, with those thoughts, at times, it can become a self-fulfilling prophecy, okay? So what that means is, if I have this negative train of thought, so it's not just one thought, it's a series of thoughts, we can churn on that to the point that we know that our thinking, as a man thinketh, so is he, it affects our emotions. It affects our state. Yes. And so then I start to feel negative, and then it's like, well, yeah, that is true. And I start to see through that lens, and looky there, they do that. And all of a sudden I see all these things. Let's use an example of maybe there's a frustrating characteristic that your spouse has. I think one of the helpful things is being aware of when that negative train of thought is kind of moving ahead, stopping it before it gets full steam, and then looking at the other side. The reality is, for all characteristics that drive us nuts, there's also a reality that, you know what, actually, I'm really thankful about that. Like, my spouse is present in the moment, and sometimes they drop things and they don't get things accomplished. But you know what? I've been blessed by their ability to be present. And so what we do is open up a balanced perspective. It's not that that's not frustrating, right?
Yeah, right.
But it's a more of a balanced perspective than all negative.
Yeah. Something I think that ties all three of these together is taking the initiative. I think sometimes we want to wait, right? If she reaches for me, I'll reach for her.
Yes.
If she acts interested in my time, then I'll act interested in her time,
Yeah.
right? I'll rewrite stories in my head when and we wait, right? Whether it's the silent treatment. Well, I'm waiting on her, and this is vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And what do we see in the love of God towards us? We see initiative.
Yeah.
We see the first act
Yes.
being God reaching out and towards.
Yes.
To touch, to be with.
And continue that.
And to continue that,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
What a model we have in the gospel. Suppose that we spouses, right? Both modeled God's act of love that initiates these things, right?
Yeah.
They would happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. And I think it'd be very powerful and blessing, not just for our spouse, but for ourselves. It draws us closer to the heart of God and his heart for us.
Yeah.
In the end, which is a very beautiful, challenging, but beautiful thing.
Well, there's something that you cast in that comment, Kaleb, that I think is very key. Yes, when we initiate all of these things, these three small things and others, when we initiate them, we are basically saying, I don't need my circumstances to align in order for me to engage, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I engage and let my circumstances align behind them.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
That is a hugely powerful thing to do.
Yes. Redemptive.
And it's very
hopeful.
redemptive.
Yes.
And it's very freeing.
It is. Yeah.
It's very freeing.
Yeah.
All right.
I agree.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yep.
These three small things, touch, time together, and positive thoughts towards the other. Okay, I think all of us can see that. We know what that looks like here today. So thank you for that. And thanks each one for being along. We trust and pray that this has been a blessing to you and will bear fruit in your marriage. Thanks for being here.